All right, it is late Sunday night, the weekend of August 25th, and welcome to the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. Taking a look at the price action for the indexes last week, starting with the NQ. What do you see there, Price?
Well, this last week on the NQ, what we had was a pretty good upward movement. We did get closes up above this level here that we previously failed to gain, but we did almost immediately lose it. So there's a pretty good chance we'll come back up, and that could happen before the open in New York. But if we don't see closes below the box here, right about there, we're good to continue up. This is the invalidation of the upward trend, because this is actually I need to move that up a little bit. About there, because this is the low that put in the high of the swing, and that hasn't been gained yet. So we need to continue up to the 1.618, or we're going to come down and fail this and then reject here, and this will still be a level. So if we're going to go down, I would expect this to be hit again to fill some more shorts, and then we'll proceed below the box and fail from there, or we'll come up and gain this level. Those are the two things we can see happen this week. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with your box. It's really interesting on Friday. Obviously, we got like a ton of pretty big wicks with the volatility there. So we actually did end up tapping that fib you pointed out pretty highly, but ended up closing back below into the range we were at. As well as, tapping lower as well. So a lot of these liquidity zones within this whole range have been kind of liquidated, all those stops have been triggered. So to your point, the big level on the chart is still 800-ish, right? We have there. And these arrows, we just had called these out on Friday in the Discord. I was saying that, I'm expecting a test up here by the end of the day, and we'll see if we either gain it or fail it. We did end up testing that level, but we didn't ever end up really definitively gaining or failing it. Sunday night, kind of the advantage of getting a little bit of an early peek at the next session. We do have sort of a move down back to this zone, and then an actual nice decent little gain up here, but we did lose the level. So to your point, I'm thinking we're either going to get another retest here and a fail down to this liquidity box, or we're going to get a test up here, gain it, and probably look to retake 19.9 up there. And if we can gain 19.9, I think we'll probably see a test of the failure up here. We'll call it 20k up there, maybe a little bit before that, but it's going to be a big pump if we can kind of regain 19,800. Otherwise, I think we're moving lower. One thing to point out about the lower option is you have this box down here at 19,700. If this is lost, we've got a lot further down to go because all these zones have been tapped. So I think we could lose another 200 to 300 points if we lose that zone. So it does look kind of a decision time on NQ, right? Are we going to continue higher, regain, or are we going to get another leg down on the higher time frame? But we'll have to see. So those are my thoughts. Anything different on the ES?
Well, the ES did continue up a little higher, and so it's currently testing that resistance there that we've got at 5,658.
Yeah, the all-time high up there.
Right. So if we don't hold this zone in here, I would expect to come lower than this wick. Which could very quickly, let's see, we would probably even end up down here if we were to close significantly below this level. That doesn't mean we just instantly go down there, but if we close below this level, the chances that this resistance is going to hold is pretty high, and that will fail this level and then this level and be down here. So that's what I see. I think it's more likely we're going up right now, but if we cannot get above this box, that's what we're looking at is a series of events that will take us down here to 55.74. What do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree with your analysis. I think, for me, the big kind of level here is 5,600. And I think that, you could say, well, we're above that, and we could totally hold that if we come down here again. But on the way up, I'm seeing these two tests on sort of the high of the range and also slurping everything below that level. So I think it's actually quite likely that this zone has been tested in terms of like all the liquidity has been sapped out of it. So if we do fail this zone, come up for a retest and confirm, further downside, we probably are going to at least go to, we have this level marked here, just that was the failure that sent us up to the previous range that we're talking about, 5586, but again, I'm thinking we'll probably end up moving lower like you're saying. So I think the big takeaway here is, kind of really watching this zone that you have marked out, 5640-ish, we have it marked 38, but this zone really needs to hold. If we can continue up for a new all-time high. If not, it's gonna be a decent sized move down. So that's kind of like the major level to hold right now on the chart. And
Yeah,
it's going to be kind of a zone. It's not perfectly 638 or 5638, but this is the area where we need to watch the price action on the chart. So, going to be watching that like a hawk. I totally agree with you. We could probably end up failing this before higher though, because this is a lot of stack stops up here. We could get some liquidity stolen to kind of punch through there, but it might be a bit further down first. So we'll have to see. As far as the RTY is concerned, the small caps, decent regain. I know that we talked about this last week, but we unfortunately had an issue with the video. We had started to sort of regain last week, and a nice look, and then get confirmation. If we actually look on the daily, it's a lot cleaner. So our initial idea was that, if we're going to lose this level, it would look something like, losing it, retesting, and moving further down. We actually ended up regaining the failure that sent us up. So right there was the failure that sent us up. So we were looking for that to gain, hold, and pump. We did get exactly that. Last week got confirmation of that. So what a great look. And now really the kind of key thing to focus on, given that we've had that move, is going to be, are we going to regain the level that failed at the last swing high that sent us down? I'm going to say that's around here. You could probably call it that. 2260. This level, if we can regain this level that sent us down, I'm going to say that we'll probably end up seeing a new high on this leg. If we do not gain this level, or we gain it, fail it, retest, and then move lower, it's probably going to be a retest of the origin that sent us up on this leg. So I'm thinking it could look like either this, kind of a gain and go, or it's going to be a fail and then probably coming all the way back down here again. So those are kind of my options on this. We'll get rid of these since these were laid out already. But I'm kind of really all eyes on deck on 2260 to kind of see where the price action goes. What do you think?
Yeah, I like your levels there and the idea of where it will go. I definitely think that this is a great buy down here at 22,000 because it's the gain here on the 4 hour. You can definitely see how this just looks like a higher low that they could put in, but that's only a 20-point retracement here, so that's not even a big deal, and then they can continue up.
Yeah, but I like that because if just because it's only 20 points, it could easily happen. So
yeah,
something to certainly watch for.
So if you're looking to long, this could be the area that takes us up to this test that you were about.
Exactly. And now that I think about that, probably wouldn't come all the way down here. The next level would really be, you want to see like a hold for the level, the high of the range, not the low of the range retest. You want to see continuation of something like that. So yeah, I'll make a slight addendum to my area, but it's the same zone, right? This red box.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is just what's going to happen when we get to 2260. That's kind of really the big one. Otherwise, I mean, it's still pretty we got a little bit spooky, but this is like starting to regain its constructive look. Let's go ahead and look at gold. The gold is similarly like pretty obvious, I would say. I mean, you know, it's been a couple of weeks, you know, really almost a whole month of kind of really retaking the uptrend, and you know, it's just been kind of holding the higher low every way. So we're just kind of in pump mode. There's no real reason to suggest at this point that we're like, you know, reversing or that, you know, things look spooky. Been quintessential higher high and higher low. You know, after retaking this 2520 level, I think we could make another significant move higher on gold, potentially even in the short term. The failure that would, you know, potentially change that would be a loss of 2500 even. You know, we could kind of still come back below here and, you know, hold and regain and keep going, but if we lose 2500, that could potentially signal loss of the uptrend here and a further downside on this range here. Otherwise, you know, there's really no reason to predict that at this point. We're just continuing higher. So as it stands right now, looking for continuation higher on gold. What do you think?
Yeah, that looks exactly like what's going to happen, in my opinion. If we hold 2500, we continue to pump. That's about as far as
yeah, I mean, it doesn't really need like super in-depth analysis, right? I mean, this is probably the most obvious chart that we'll talk about. It's just pumping. Any difference on the Dow charts over the major indexes?
Well, you know, as you can see, it is pumping quite a bit more like the ES was. It's right before the all-time high there. We have closed above the failure here, as well as the major level there that sent us down. The question is, are we going to hold this upper zone and actually take out this high? It's pretty likely. I think if it were to come down to 41,000, that's a pretty obvious buy in my book. Targeting all-time high again. So that's what my analysis would tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see the exact same thing, and that goes all the way as far back as, you know, in July. So, you know, this level consolidated to send us down here, and that's kind of been the level that we've been fighting over the whole time, right? When we failed it, regained it, and then we lost that level again, that's really what caused the dump down here. And we just spent like, you know, a better part of a week, you know, trying to regain that. Finally doing so on Friday. And so now, to your point, I think, you know, we could either continue to new high, or we could, you know, kind of slurp back down here to 41K, get a nice hold, and then blast a new all-time high, potentially try to retake this zone. But I think the daily, you know, that's like the minutia looking for trades, but the daily looks really clean because, you know, you can see these levels that all tested here, and now we're definitively closed back up above there where we haven't had closes since the failure. So I'm definitely on board with this. This looks really good. We'd kind of called that this is what we wanted to look for. We kind of pointed out a few little sections of where we thought that might happen. You get some tests in there, you know, if you kind of imagine these. This is the daily, so if you can imagine what those look like, those candle wicks, you know, look like on the lower time frames. We were somewhat accurate, but not entirely. Like this level right here, when we blew past 39.8, you just blasted up. So, you know, levels don't have to always get tested, but that's kind of where we look for our trades. Don't really think there's too much more to talk about here. Looks like we'll have to see what happens at 41K. Other than that, you have any other thoughts on oil? Oil's been really difficult to trade recently, if you don't know the system.
Yeah, so oil absolutely came down and took out the low here, and then immediately regained it and is now pumping, which is a pretty good signal. We are up above this level. I don't think it's entirely likely we'll hold the top of the range here, but if we do come down, I do think it's likely that it will hold for a higher low and continue. You can see how on the 1 hour, this level looks really good. Right here, it does look a little tested. So you would kind of want to hold the top here if possible. But there can always be a regain situation after putting in a new low. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with your sentiment. I'm going to disagree with you slightly. But first, I do want to comment about, after putting in in fact, we'll just draw it this way, like you've been doing, right? New low, right? Not a straight line, this is lower. And then we immediately regain. You take the level to gain as continuation for your long after seeing that valid long setup. So that's how you can kind of get this really nice, like, swing failure longs at the perfect level. But those are hard to spot if you're not watching it. I will say that, I see this failure here around 73-ish. We'll call it there, 73, 17-ish, This is untested on the long side. I would not hate seeing something like this. I think this could be a juicy long, and then you get your regain and hopefully continuation. And I think that looks pretty decent on the 4 hour as well. Yeah. Now, obviously, if we're just going to pump, you're right. We want to see this level up here hold, and that's still a valid trade setup, right? If this ends up holding, we can continue pumping. But I would not be shocked to see a little bit more noise down here, and I'd really like to see something like 73 hold. Really be watching that area for a long this week or in the next week. It's kind of my thoughts. Either way, these are still valid long setups on a reversal from a new low back into the range. But we've said that a few times on oil, admittedly. I mean, oil's been pretty choppy. It's really not obvious which way oil wants to go right now. Every time we make a new low, it looks like we're getting slurped up back in the range. So someone is defending some of their longs down here or accumulating a very large position, which makes me think that the market could see a nice little long reversal at some point. Or we could get, more continuation downside to the downside on the longer term. There's going to be a lot of stacked stop losses down here. So that goes to actually, I think you drew these longer term ideas where we could see it, this low fallout, potential regain for a long, or a retest and then further downside if we can't regain. Those are kind of the macro ideas, but the lower level time frame charts, longs do look like they're back on. At least that's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the dollar, let's talk about the dollar. It's been getting absolutely hammered recently. I think the last time we really majorly talked about the dollar was saying that, 104.2, if this fails, we're probably making a huge dump. That's exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. And then I was saying, okay, well, now that's the level we have to regain. We did not. We didn't even come close to testing the failure, even though we're getting continuation downside. So the dollar's really been getting hammered. And we even lost the next level at 101.4, which is the next level I wanted to see hold. We tried to regain, but ended up closing back below, so we're getting further downside. Now we're really going to have to talk about the longer term picture here. So the swing, this whole downtrend right here, from about 22 to the middle of 23, the reversal of that to the first higher high after all of that, the origin of that move is 100.28. That is the next level to hold because we've lost everything else. If we can't hold this zone, we'll call it between 100 and 100.28. If this level doesn't hold or fail and then regain and continue higher, we're looking at a pretty gigantic loss. We'd have to kind of even look at the weekly, in my opinion. We'll probably end up coming back down to either 99 or 98, probably, which is going to be a pretty large loss for the dollar. We're talking about losing this entire upper range at that point. At this point, we've been kind of bullish on the dollar for a pretty long time. I mean, we have this arrow, right, saying we think it's going up to 109. We're kind of at the point where we have to kind of be honest and say that that's pretty much out the window. We're definitely making lower lows and lower highs, right? So if these are all highs, these are all lower highs, that's a low, this is a lower low. So we're definitely in a downtrend on the dollar. But the level to gain is still the same. If we're going to reverse that longer trend, 104.2, and we are a long ways from that. More downside is significantly more likely, in my opinion. So eyes on 100.28 or 100, depending on where in the range that gets taken. If we cannot hold that level, getting continuation down, talking about a bigger move down for the dollar. That's my analysis. What do you think?
I agree completely. Those are the levels, and if they don't hold, it's not going to be looking good.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time talking about that because I think it's important to admit when we're wrong, and I think for now we can delete this because it doesn't look like we're moving up. It will be interesting to see kind of what happens in the coming months. You know, if I'm not the biggest fan of injecting a lot of fundamental talk into our discussions, but you know, if the Fed is going to cut rates, that should weaken the dollar. So it'll be interesting to see if we do lose this zone, kind of where in this downside we end up kind of finding something. But those areas that we talked about, 99, 98, if we lose this zone, those are the next levels in question. So just keep those areas in mind. Now, as far as the banks are concerned, what do you think, Price? Anything, any new developments?
Well, they had a pretty good pump here. They did test this upper invalidation here on this swing. Didn't quite close above it, but as long as they hold 56, 58, this is looking really bullish. And in fact, coming down to 55 even is pretty bullish. The reason being, this is the level we wanted to gain to continue up after this low that we put in here and the consolidation or the accumulation that occurred afterward. We saw this pump, and the fact that they gained this level here is significant. So we want to see it hold if we're looking for longs. If we were to see it come down and close below this level, just below 55, we could see it continue down. And we would probably go to the level here that we were talking about. But it does look very bullish. It does look like it's a great long at 56.58 there on KRE, probably for the same reason of rate cuts.
Yeah, probably is. Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a great long. I also agree that I think this is probably super juicy somewhere in,
right,
the 55s, somewhere in this zone where, this wasn't just an arbitrary, line that we drew. This was the area that, if we failed that, we expected this move. And because we gained that, now we can talk about longs again. And that is exactly what we're doing. So because we failed to regain the failure that sent us down, we can go lower for some liquidity. This is the failure that sent us up, so we can retest that, move higher. We can also, like you were saying, take 56.50. That's the level that failed to send us to the current high. So we can also, come here, hold that, and continue higher. So, like you said, until we lose sort of this zone up and down here, we're still talking about longs being back on the table again. And quite frankly, longs still looked good even down here, because we said when this pump happened, these retracements could be a great area to start looking for longs, and that this was just, if we're going to continue down, this is where we'd expect to see the failure, and we actually ended up gaining anyway. This gives us further confidence for anyone who has longs kind of in this area, even here, to hold on to your trade and continue looking for new highs, even on higher low retracements. So I think it's all looking pretty constructive. I would really love to see 55 hold, because I think there's probably locally, that's probably the most obvious long on the chart. So that's kind of what I think. I don't really think that there warrants too much more analysis. These lines are pretty on point. So 58.26 for the level to gain. If we can gain that, we should see further upside. But otherwise, let's looking for higher low longs on the KRE. You have any closing thoughts?
Nope. I think we're up here on KRE and most everything.
Yeah. I think it's going to be an interesting rest of the year, I think, depending on what goes on here. But the markets look primed for higher, in my opinion, for the most part. Anyways, thanks for tuning into the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. If you like this kind of content, sub to the Hub and consider joining our Trader Hub Discord community server. You can find it using our link in the description. We'll see you next week.
Till next time.